Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm doing kind of a different video today. I just got this card set in the mail today. This is a collaboration between Hero Arts and Joann, which is a fabric craft kind of store. If you have those locally, they certainly sell online. But I ordered this is the November 2022 kit. It's the Make Yourself at Home card kit. And I really love these kits. I'll tell you why. It comes with so many items, and if you are a new crafter and you're not sure if you are going to like card making long term, you don't want to collect a lot of different stamps and dies and all of the tools and things that go with card making, this is a really great kit to sort of get your feet wet, to get you started, because it comes with so many different things. So I'm going to do sort of like a quick little unboxing here. I'm not affiliated with Hero Arts. If you have watched my videos, you do know that I absolutely love the Hero Arts Hero Hues cardstock, the 111 pound cover weight cardstock, because I do use that for a lot of my card bases. It's really heavyweight. It is great quality. But this is everything you get in this set, and I think it is really amazing for just kind of jumping into card making and having lots and lots of different elements to try out. So there is a stamp set with a coordinating die. There's some gold embossing powder and some embossing and watermark clear ink. Two different colors of these small ink cubes. There's pine and cranberry in this set. This is gold embossing powder that you can use with this embossing ink. Cards, I believe there are 10 cards here, and coordinating A2 envelopes. There is cardstock. It looks like, if I remember the colors right, I think this is pine and this is cranberry. If I remember my Hero Arts colors, I believe that's correct. And these are 8.5 by 5.5, so it's an A2 size, scored and folded. That's an A2 card base, and this is heavyweight cardstock. This is definitely a great weight for the for a front panel or for even a card base. So really nice. And then there's also this stencil in the November kit. And I mean, I just think this is amazing. It's a poinsettia stencil. This is probably a 5.5 or 6 by 6 stencil. So you get all of this, and you get this awesome little suggestion card. So gives you some tips on how to use all of the different products, other supplies you might need to make what they have suggested here in the photo, and a list of everything the kit includes, and lots of other suggestions on how to use the elements in the kit. So I will create about 3 or 4 cards, and that is going to be the focus of this video. Okay, I spent the last evening working on some different cards, and I did realize that there was another element in this kit that I did not show in the intro, and that is this, I believe this is a yard long piece of green and white twine. So bonus, another element that was in the package that I didn't see in the beginning. So we have that to work with as well. So here's what I have done. There were 2 8.5 by 5.5 pieces of cranberry cardstock and pine cardstock. So I cut one of each of the pieces to 4.25 by 5.5. 2 pieces of 2 pieces cut from one of the larger pieces from both colors. And I have also, I don't make a lot of top fold cards. I am going to make one for this video, but all of the note cards that came in this kit were top fold, A2 top fold cards. So I have taken one of the top fold cards and I have cut that in half to create just a 4¼ by 5½ inch piece that I will use for the first card in addition to one of the top fold note cards. So these are all of the elements, and this is the first card. I had to go back to my stash and find a piece of twine because there wasn't enough of this green to make a prototype card and to make a card for the video. So the card that I am making will have the green and white twine that came in the kit. My prototype card has red, still looks great, but this is the first card that we'll be making, and this is the card that takes no other elements outside of what was provided in the kit. Okay, for the first card, I'm going to stamp up the large image, this large stamp in my MISTI. And let's see, so I don't want this entire image on my card. I do want part of this poinsettia, most of this poinsettia, and I want it to come down maybe about halfway or a little more than halfway down the card. So let's see, kind of like that placement. So I'm going to make sure this is held down pretty well, pick up my stamp. There's the first part of our image. Okay, I'm going to move on to these 3 stamps, Peace, Love, and Joy. And I'm going to use kind of a trick here to line these up. So in my test card, I have these sort of lined up, left aligned, but I think I'm going to try to center these. I think I like the look a little better if they're centered, and I want them very close together. So I'm going to stamp this up in the pine. So I'm going to ink this up in the pine. For the next step in the card, I am going to use this green and white twine to create a little, a series of loops and a bow here in the center. So here's how I do that. And I'm actually going to use most all of this. So I want to start, I want my, my twine to go here near the center. And I want to leave about, what is this, 6 to 8 inches here off of the right hand side. So I'm going to open up my card and go around 3 times with the other end coming out on this side. And then I'm going to pull these to the center, take the longer piece and go underneath all 3 of these loops of twine. We can make these pretty after it's all tied, but I want to get it approximately where I want my bow to be in the center. And then I can tie this. Make sure the tail on each side is the same length. Okay, so now arrange these exactly as you want them to be. You don't really want mine very far apart, just enough that you can tell it's 3 loops and that they are approximately the same height on each side. And then you can open up the card to the inside. And this smaller panel that I cut from one of the other note cards, I'm going to glue this onto the inside to cover up the inside of the ribbon. I cut this a little bit smaller than 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, so I shaved off just a sliver on the top and on one side so that there was no way this panel was going to show on the outside of the card once I've glued this down. And I want to glue a little bit of this down as well. All right, so I'm going to glue this down so I have just a little bit of ease on each side here, making sure that I'm pressing here in the middle where this twine is, because I don't want this twine to move. Once this card dries, it should be pretty secure. And now you have a really nice finished edge or finished side to the inside of your card. So this card is finished. This is just a quick and simple card using the elements within the kit. Beautiful green and red Christmassy colors. Really like this card. Quick and easy. You can whip out 10 of these in no time. Okay, here's what we need for the second card. I have the other half of that note card that I cut off for the first card. I have one of the pieces of 8 1/2 by 5 1/2 heavyweight red cardstock, and then one of the panels from the other piece that I cut in half. I have the stencil, poinsettia stencil. I am going to use this Picket Fence Studio paper glaze. This is in Winter Snowfall. I have the embossing and watermark ink, and I have some white embossing powder. Okay, I've taped down my sheet of paper, and I'm going to tape the stencil over this sheet of paper. This paper glaze is really cool. The texture is kind of like soft marshmallow fluff frosting, and it has a really soft shimmer. It's really dreamy. So I'm just going to start at the top and pull this straight down, making sure that I get glaze in every single little hole of this stencil. I'm going to go back over it and make sure that I level everything off. I want a really flat surface. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. I'm going to take this off. So I'm going to lift this up. And that is just absolutely beautiful. So I'll put this aside to dry while I'm doing some quick cleanup. Okay, while the front panel is drying, I'm going to move on to the greeting for the front of this card. So I'm gonna grab my Misty, and I'm going to use the Peace, Love, and Joy stamps again. I'm just going to stamp these on this red cardstock. I'll leave a little bit of space in between them for my die. but I am going to try to line them up so that it will be easier to line up my die at the point that I'm ready to die cut these. I'm going to use this My Favorite Things Essential Stitched Sentiment Strips, and I'm going to use this smaller die. So I want to make sure that I have room in between each of these to get that die in there and cut each of these. Okay, I am going to use an anti-static powder tool here. I am going to emboss these in some detail white embossing powder. And I don't want any stray flecks of powder. Okay, so I'm going to use the little embossing and watermark ink pad that came with the set. Okay, I'm going to apply the embossing powder. Okay, I'm ready to heat emboss this. Okay, I have my greeting strips. I cut 3 additional just plain red strips to put behind each one of these, and I have my card base. So I am going to start by scoring my card base at 4 1/4. So this card base, this is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I'm going to trim this down just a little bit. So I'm just going to use my tonic trimmer. Let's see, I want to take 1/4 of an inch off on each side. So let's see. Actually, it's 1/8 of an inch on each side. Okay, now I'll glue the greetings to these extra strips. Next step is to glue these on the front of the card. I'm going to use these foam squares to pop this up a little bit. I'm giving it a little more visual interest by giving it some dimension since it's the only element on the front of the card. So I'll place this one first, and then I will align the top and the bottom greeting strips based on where this one is placed. Okay, there's the second card. Nice sparkly background, very simple, 2 colors, lots of pop with the dimension on these greeting strips. Really like this one. So card number 2. And moving on to card number 3. Okay, for card number 3, I have some, this is Expressit blending paper, marker paper. You can certainly use the note cards that are in the kit. Those will work. I like how these work with Copic markers. So for the 3rd card, I will be using Copics to color the card. So I pulled out this blending paper. We're going to use this large stamp. And I'm going to stamp this twice. There is a separate die for just this poinsettia. So I'm going to use the entire stamp, and then I'm also going to die cut just this poinsettia. So I'll stamp it up twice. Okay, I'm using quite a few different colors of Copics for this card. For the poinsettia, I'm going to use, let's see, R59, R37, and R21. And then I'll move on to the leaves. So before I start, I'm going to speed this up and put on some nice Christmas music for my coloring. For the larger leaves, I am going to use these 3 colors. I'm going to keep the highlight on each leaf toward the top and the middle of each leaf. And then all of these leaves that are tucked in behind, I'm going to do the exact same thing, except the highlight is going to be lower here toward where these front leaves meet, just to give it a little more dimension, make it look a little more natural, because that's where the highlight would be on the leaf if it were in the front. And again, I'll put on some music and speed this up and getting to coloring. colored both of my panels and I'm ready to die cut these. This set does come with two dies to die cut the images. So here's one and here's one. I'm going to get these lined up. This one is a little tricky, by the way. Thought I figured out something earlier. Oh, yes. This little piece here that has the part that points in points to these three little berries. And that's how I lined it up, figured out how to line it up without turning it 100 times. So I'm going to go ahead and tape these down and die cut these. I am going to add some pops of color to these little berries here at the top. Okay, I'm going to put this aside to dry and I am going to create a background for this card. So I'm going to need a spray box. And I am going to use Distress Mica Stain in Tart Cranberry. Okay, this is going to need just a second to dry. And while this is drying, I think I'm going to add one more thing to my die cut here. I have a Sakura Glaze pen and I kind of want to add just a little bit of highlight to these smaller berries. So just a bit. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and place this on top. I'm going to offset this just slightly from the image underneath. Okay, that looks great. And I think this pops of color is still not quite dry yet. However, I believe this is. And I am going to place this on a, let's see, we're going to use one of the green card bases. So I will go ahead and score this, and then I'll be ready to assemble the front of the card. Okay, I've scored this at 4 1/4. I'm going to go ahead and press this down. Okay, this panel is dry. I'm going to trim this down to fit on the front of my card with about 1/16 of an inch on each side of the base cardstock showing. So I will just trim this down in my tonic trimmer. And that should be perfect. Okay. The only other thing I have to do is to create my greeting. So all of the pieces are ready. The greeting for this, I am going to cut from one of these two 4 1/4 by 5.5 pieces of cardstock that I cut from the larger piece. So for this card, I think I am going to use the Merry Christmas greeting. And I'm going back to the My Favorite Things Essential Stitched Sentiment Strips. I just really love these. They are stitched, great size. I want to make sure that it is going to fit. And I think it is going to barely fit on here. I think I'm going to flip it because I want to make sure that I have enough space. And I don't want to have to do this twice. So Okay, I think that looks pretty good. And I am going to emboss this with gold embossing powder. So I will ink this up with clear embossing ink. I will use my anti-static powder tool just to be sure. I think that's going to be okay. Okay, I've moved the gold embossing powder to a container. I'll line up my die, making sure that it is even and I have the same amount of space on each side and top and bottom. And then I can tape this down and run it through the die cut machine. Looks good. Okay, I cut a second strip so I could stack these, give it a little more stability. I believe I have everything that I need to put the front of this card together. So here's what we're doing. Make sure this is dry. It is. Kind of want to see where I want to put my greeting here. And I think I kind of like it at the bottom. More foam squares. And I already have some dimension here, so I am just going to glue this to my base. I think I will use some Gina K tape runner. That looks good. And I'll use some Tombow to adhere this. And I want these little berries at the top. So the last step in this card is to adhere the greeting strip. That is card number 3 from this set. And I really like this card. So I am going to start with embossing this piece of acetate. And I want to use my anti-static powder tool on both sides of this acetate, and I am going to put on the powder very liberally. This embossing powder, metallic embossing powder, has a tendency to stick to absolutely everything, and I want to make doubly sure that I don't have anything sticking to this acetate other than where I am stamping. So we're going to go back to this full stamp, and I want to make sure that I cut this to 4.5 tall, and I need 1/4 of an inch lip up here that I'm going to score and fold back to put this on the front of the card. So I want to make sure that I allow myself enough space up here and that this is far enough down that it is not going to interfere with that fold. Grab my gold embossing powder. am going to go ahead and heat this up and see how it looks. Okay, this is actually not too bad. I'm going to let this cool down, and I am going to go ahead and work on the greeting for the front of the card. Okay, before I cut the greeting, I actually need to stamp this one more time. I am going to, behind this acetate, I'm going to put just a die cut of these two, or actually these four, I should say, poinsettia plants. Let's see what we have here. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and die cut this, and then I'll come back and do the greeting. And it doesn't, the smaller die doesn't line up exactly with the larger die, which is something I learned when I was making the first cards, my practice cards, to see what I liked. So I'm going to go ahead and tape this into place to cut that out, and then I'll fussy cut around this second image here. Okay, have my larger image. I'm going to fussy cut around this image and this small poinsettia, and then this one as well. Okay, and I know I said I was going to die cut this. I'm actually not going to die cut this. This is going to be an acetate overlay for the front of the card. But what I do want to do is line these up. And I'm going to put a very small piece of tape on the back to hold these down once I get them lined up. And what I want to do is transfer these to this green panel. So I'm going to put a little bit more tape just on the back of here, and then flip this over, press it down. These will adhere here, and then everything should be lined up perfectly. Okay, that is the most difficult part of this card. I promise you it's worth it. Next step is to create a crease at the top of this acetate. Okay, I've scored my acetate at 1/4 inch, and I scored it on the wrong side. So this is the embossed side, this is the smooth side. So it's coming toward me on this score. So I'm going to just use my fingers to give it a little bit of a boost here, right along that scoring line. Here's the front, looks great, lines up, it's beautiful. And this is going to go onto the front of an A2 card. So I've already scored this card. I'm going to go ahead and fold it and give it a press. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a strip of double-sided tape here along the top. So I'm going to place this all So front panel, front of the card. I'm gonna make sure these line up before I press this into place. And that looks good. So fold it over. Use your bone folder to go along the edge and crease this again. And you have an acetate panel on the front of your card. All right, so now this is going to be adhered to the front of the card, this entire panel. So I'm going to check this out and make sure that I have everything centered. I don't want to see the white card on the front. I just want the green and the acetate. So I'm going to use score tape again because this score tape is very strong. So I'm going to put just a couple of pieces of score tape on the back of this, and then I'll adhere it to the card base. Okay, next step, I am going to stamp that greeting. I'm going to use the Merry Christmas greeting. And I'm using this sliver of a piece of red cardstock that I have left here. So I will go back to the embossing and watermark ink. I think I will maybe ink this twice. I did not use an anti-static powder tool because I just thought of it. Again, not perfect. Is it one of the card makers says it's handmade, not perfect, something like that? Okay, I'm going to, let's see, I am going to use the gold embossing powder that came in the kit. Oh, this is a bit messy. This is going to take a little bit of cleanup, and this is what happens when you forget to use the anti-static powder tool and you're down to your very last piece of red cardstock. So this is just going to be really exciting. Okay, much better. Do a little cleanup here. I'm going to heat emboss this greeting. I think I'll go ahead and just snip off this extra paper. It's a bit dramatic. Yes, I used every conceivable inch of my red cardstock. There's the proof. Okay, so let's tape this down with some of these scraps of tape I have over here. feel like I'm the frugal crafter in this video with all of my scraps of tape and scraps of cardstock. I'm going to die cut this. Greeting front. I'm going to decide where this is going to go in the front of my card. And I kind of like center. I think I may do center for this one. I like that. I think I will do center. So I am going to use score tape again. Score tape and acetate play so well together. Since I'm not popping this up, I'm not going to worry about giving it any additional dimension with a second layer. And also, I'm not sure that I even have enough red cardstock to make a second layer for this greeting. Okay, so I'm going to use my T-square ruler to make sure that I get this straight on the front. And let's use reverse tweezers to hold on to this. Keep my hands out of the way. Maybe a little lower here, I think. That looks straight, that looks centered, and it is. So next thing I'm going to do, again, I don't see a reason why you need to flip up acetate. I think heat embossed acetate, you still get the look. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to give this one more press gently so I don't make any marks on the acetate. And then I am going to put a piece of score tape on the inside along this greeting line and then press it down and close it, and the acetate will be held in place. Okay, so when you fold this over, you just got to be bold and go for it. And that is card number 4. Whew. It's been a whirlwind, but I hope what you took from this video is not that I'm stingy with materials, because I'm not. I really wanted to show that you can use just the elements in this card kit to create some really cool cards. And if you have other things that you want to pull in and use to just amp them up a little bit more, the kit is totally flexible. So hopefully you're encouraged to go out and try some of these kits. I am a card kit junkie. I absolutely love card kits, and I have lots of them. I believe I have 2 card kits right now over here on the floor that haven't even been opened yet, but I love playing with them. I love adding to my stash with the elements in card kits. So here is what I made today. I think these are all really cool. Hopefully you're inspired to go out and grab a card kit, create some really cool holiday cards. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.